Well, I tracked him down. He's hiding someplace in the mountains of Japan. Warren Redlich, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for setting this up. I'd love to chat.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Tesla and Airs, Tesla and Airs together.
there you go. Well, you came to mind because I've been trying to wrap my head around what's taken place in the last 7 days, really what's taken place in the last 6 weeks, because it's just been crazy, one thing after another. I'm not so sure how this old ticker, is handling it. I said to somebody the other day, I was glad I had the open heart surgery 3 years ago so that I have the best chance of surviving all this excitement.
Yeah.
Anyway, Warren, number one, you are a libertarian through and through and through. You're probably the most staunch libertarian I personally know. My one son is kind of a libertarian, but not like you. And you described it a couple of times. I don't know whether you were talking to me or whether I've seen it on X. Is you saw the other two parties as a uniparty, that there was really not enough distinction between the parties. So, in hopes of maybe getting an opinion from a staunch unitarian libertarian who got his mind changed by MAGA republicanism, what what made you decide that that was enough different that you wanted to get behind it?
Okay, so I would say my mind was not changed by anything the Republicans did.
Right.
My mind was changed by what the Democrats did.
Okay.
The Democrats went so far left. I usually think there isn't a big difference between the parties.
Right.
To me, the difference between, and I understand people won't agree with me on this, but to me, the difference between Barack Obama and George W. Bush isn't that great.
Hmm.
Um, but the Democrats went so far left. Um, and in particular, so there's a whole bunch of issues you could talk, like men playing in men saying that they're women and playing in women's sports
Right.
is one of the prime examples. But I think from a Tesla investor perspective and an Elon Musk fan perspective, it was very apparent to me that Donald Trump at least mostly supports Elon and what Elon's trying to do. Not to say he never says negative things about EVs. He does say negative things about EVs, but he showed up to a launch while he was president. He generally says positive things about the things that Elon does. Occasionally he says stupid stuff, but and my view is that the Democratic Party and Kamala in particular, they want to arrest Elon. They want, I see Elon as the person doing more than anyone else to make life better for humanity globally.
Yes.
Make Tesla investors happy, make people who drive in the world, travel in the world safer and save money and cure brain disease and get us to Mars, all these great things, right? A safe artificial intelligence that focuses on truth rather than politically correct lying AIs, right? I mean, I think he's got a really good handle on a lot of these things, and they want to stop him. They've been very clear that they are anti-Elon, and not like since he bought X,
Right.
right? Since he
Before that.
bought Twitter and turned it into X. I'm talking about during 2019 when Biden was running for president, before he was even the nominee. He was at best quiet about Elon, but more generally negative. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, you can go down the AOC, the media that is controlled by the same people that control the Democratic Party has been anti-Elon for at least 5 years.
Right.
And now that he's become more and more successful, they more and more want to stop him. And they really are, I think he calls it misanthropic. They hate humanity. They are extinctionists, whatever it is. They crave power for themselves more than they care about the future of humanity. And a lot more. Like they don't really care about the future of humanity. They crave power now.
Right.
That's my,
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but
Yeah.
that's what I see.
Yeah.
And it's Kamala Harris, it's Joe Biden, it's the deep state, it's Elizabeth. You could go down the list. George Soros, Alex Soros. So they went so far left, and they went so far anti-Elon that I now saw a meaningful difference
I
between
see.
the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate in the election.
Mhm,
And I should say, on COVID in particular,
mhm,
I am a libertarian.
mhm,
Don't
mhm,
force me to wear a mask.
mhm.
Don't force me to stick a needle in my arm. Don't control my travel. Now, they tried to do those things. They did them worse in other places. I was free to travel in the United States, and in doing so, I went from a place that was blue, where everyone was forced to wear masks and restaurants were shut down or 25% occupancy. And famously, within the Tesla community, I flew out to California, met up with Omar and K10 and my brother, and we drove across country in the Model 3 that Omar was selling to me, the Elon signed
Right,
Model 3.
right.
And as we crossed the border from California to, I forget whether it's Arizona or Mexico's next, whatever, we crossed the border. I said, "Welcome to the free states," to the three West Coasters. And they looked puzzled. By the time we got to Austin, they understood, because we went through all these states and we went to all these places and stopped, and no one was wearing masks. There were no vaccine required signs before you could enter a restaurant. And they're like, "Why were we wearing masks? Why were they, what was all this other stuff about?" So Democrats largely pushed that. Like, really
Yeah.
good example is I was in Oregon visiting 𝐸𝐴𝐻, and I went to the Planet Fitness. I think, don't hold me to, it was Planet Fitness, but I think it was a Planet Fitness in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, and they forced masks. And I was literally like not wearing a mask, and they ordered me to wear a mask. And there's a governor's order on the window. I was like, but the WHO says not to wear a mask while doing strenuous activity.
Right.
Right? It's like they, so, and I wanted to take a step back. I don't, I jokingly say this. Am I a libertarian? Am I not a libertarian? I used to be a libertarian, but I don't believe in that much government anymore.
Yeah, right. Yes, right.
There are groups within the Libertarian Party. It's a very diverse group
Sure,
within
sure.
a certain ideology. And many people claim that they're libertarians who aren't. John Bolton apparently calls himself a libertarian.
Mhm,
No.
mhm.
Donald Trump is not a libertarian. No. Mark Cuban is not a libertarian. No.
Right.
And by the way, you're not a real libertarian until you've accused someone else of not being a real libertarian.
There
It's
you
like
go.
one of the tests. But there's a wing of libertarianism, which I would say is the wing that formed the Libertarian Party in the United States, called anarcho-capitalism.
Mm,
It sounds like pure anarchism. It's anarcho-capitalism. There's others. There's an anarcho-socialism. There's anarcho whatever. And basically, it comes down to my view. Government is cancer.
yeah.
And you don't want any cancer in your body, and you don't want any government in your life.
Right.
Once, and the thing that is true about government, is you can see it in the United States history, is we started with very small government. The total government spending, until, with the exception of the Civil War, until roughly 1910s, 1920s, was less than 5% of GDP.
Hmm.
Total government, federal, state, local
Right.
spending, all
Right.
together was less than 5% of GDP.
Right.
If you lived in America more than the first 100 years, you've had almost zero interaction with government in your life.
Right.
If you were in Washington, D.C., then you had more. If you were in a state capital,
Right.
you
Right.
were, there were certain places where you had more interaction. But if you were just in general, you lived somewhere on a farm somewhere, you had basically zero interaction with government.
Mm-hmm.
And now government spends about 50% of GDP,
Right.
between federal, state, and local.
Right.
School district, add it all up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, I don't know how many taxes. George Bush saw 1,000 points of light. I see thousands of taxes. They tax us on our taxes. We have taxi
Right.
tax.
Right.
So you start with something small, and it spreads and it grows and it metastasizes, and it won't let go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping Elon is chemotherapy, and it's going to be painful. But it's just to be clear, within the Libertarian Party, there's a lot of different
Sure,
voices.
sure,
There's
sure.
people who just want to legalize marijuana, which is, yes, but that's not libertarianism. That's just, I want to smoke pot does not make you a libertarian.
Right. Right. Right.
Right. I want other people to be able to use fentanyl if they choose to. That's libertarian.
Right.
Right. I don't want the government to stop that guy over there from using fentanyl, even if it's going to kill him. That's
Even if it's going to kill them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you made this switch. You were happy, like many of us were. You were happy when you went to bed. Probably, I don't know what time it was where you were when the final decision was made on Pennsylvania, but you were happy that this election went the direction that it did. And then the stock market went nuts. And the stock market that we care about the most, the Tesla stock, went even nutser and has continued and continued and continued, finishing today at 350 with another 3 last time I checked in the after hours. With people adding to their projections, lots of folks all of a sudden waking up to the idea that Tesla is undervalued. My number has been 300. You probably remember because it's become kind of a joke around me. But I also had a 450 for the end of January. I had a 700 for the end of next year. So I'm not new to these numbers, but a whole bunch of other folks now have joined kind of in that range.
I just want to just be clear, my number, and I know this is going to sound conservative.
Yeah.
But my number is 10,000.
10,000, but it's not next year.
Probably not next year.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know your number. I know your eventual number is 10,000. Yes, and I would agree with you.
That's my conservative. That's my conservative.
Conservative. No, and I would agree with
2028, 2029.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah, especially if we build 1 million semi-trucks a year.
So let me break down what I see as what's coming.
I appreciate that.
I did a video about this. I did a video already about this. I've got another video that I'm publishing maybe 12 hours from now, something like that. It's 7:25 a.m. here in Thailand, so it's like 5 p.m. in the United States.
And this may mean that your video is already published by the time this is published, because it'll be.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I roughly Tuesday morning in America, I think, or maybe it's Wednesday morning. Whatever, I get confused. I think Tuesday morning in America. But I have this theory or view of the world of Tesla investors, and the world of investors in general.
Okay,
that roughly 90% of the market is largely unaware of Tesla as a stock. They don't know about Robotaxi. They don't know about Optimus. They know Tesla makes cars. They don't know about Tesla Energy. They don't know about Tesla Semi. They're not really paying that much attention to Tesla.
Right.
That's not, there are people who are looking at 100 stocks. You can't dive deep into Tesla if you're studying 100 stocks or 500 stocks, or you're an index fund investor and you don't really pay attention to stocks at all. So 90% of the market is not watching.
Right.
1% are people like us.
Yeah.
Who are deep diving Tesla. And we're true believers. And some of us are all in, some of us have other stocks that the true believers, and I can't fault anybody for being in NVIDIA, for example. I haven't done the deep dive necessary in NVIDIA yet, and I'm not going to bother because I've got my stock.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's the right decision. I'm just saying, like, I feel comfortable with where I'm at. So you've got the 1% true believers who have invested heavily in Tesla. You've got the 90% who are unaware.
Right.
Then there's this 9%. I'm making up numbers. It might be 2.
Sure.
It might be 80, whatever. But if you call it 19 and 90, okay, that 9% are people who they see it to some extent. They may not be true believers like us, but they see it. They get that Tesla's going bigger in the future.
Right.
And they anticipate that the 90% is going to figure it out at some point. And they're waiting to buy until just before the 90% buy.
I see.
So
would these be like the CNBC, some of the CNBC folks that come on that have a little knowledge of Tesla, and all of a sudden you're sitting there listening to them going, you haven't even mentioned Optimus. You haven't even talked about Semi.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying they've done the deep dive. I'm just saying they get that Tesla has a really big positive future. Right. They might not see 10,000. Right. They might see 1,000.
Gotcha.
They might see 500 or 1,000. Okay.
Right.
And they want to get ahead, and probably more likely that they're not true believers and they see 500, they see 600, 700, something like that. They don't see 10,000.
Right.
Okay. And they see, all right, Semi starts producing volume, energy doubles or triples.
Right.
Some FSD increases sales. Something happens in, let's say, Q4 of 2025 or Q1 of 2026 that triggers the 90% to figure out something special is happening with Tesla, and the 90% start buying.
Right.
Now, if you're time in the market, you want to buy before the 90% start buying.
Right. Right.
So if you think that the 90% are going to figure it out in Q4 of 2025, well, then you want to buy Q3 of 2025. Now, here's the twist. If you're in the 9%, and you're thinking, all right, these guys are going to buy, all these other guys around me, they're going to buy in Q3 of 2025. Well, I want to get ahead of them. So I'm going to buy in Q2 of 2025. Now, a smaller subset says, well, I want to get ahead of those guys. So I'm going to buy in Q1 of 2025. Well, we're in Q4 of 2024.
Right.
So maybe it's already started happening. I don't know. I've heard theories that institutional investors were underweight in
Right.
Tesla, and now they're buying in to catch up.
Right.
So that creates demand for the stock, that raises the stock price, that as the stock price rises, the shorts get squeezed, and the shorts have to do whatever they have to do, and that increases the stock price. And there's something called the gamma squeeze, which I don't understand, and please don't explain it to me, and that may be pushing the stock price up. And so there's theories that the stock's going to continue rising in the short term, and I just don't worry about that stuff. I don't have free cash to buy more stock. Right. The one I do have a decision I have to make at some point, but I occasionally have to sell small amounts. Right now, my social media income is up, so I'm less likely to have to sell in the near. I did sell 2% before the election, anticipating my minimum required distribution, and that I do want to have some free cash for that. My cash pile was getting small.
Right.
Now,
right.
My social media, I'm not saying my social media income is up crazy, but it's like my cost of living is low.
Right.
So maybe I'm making $3,000 a month, something like that. Well, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I may not need more cash.
Right.
Because my rent is $650 a month for a nice 2-bedroom condo. I don't know if I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you an off-color joke.
Okay.
I joke with people. If you go on YouTube, you'll find videos of, can an American man live in Thailand on $1,000 a month?
Right. Right.
And I have the answer for you.
Okay.
You don't have to watch the long videos. It's really simple.
Okay.
You get a small condo, rent a small condo, 300 square feet. It's like a studio. $300 a month, decent building, swimming pool, gym in the building. The gym's not that great. And a decent location, not a great location, in Bangkok. If you go outside Bangkok, it's cheaper, but $300 a month for a decent studio condo. $300 a month for food, that's $10 a day. I could do $5 a day. You saw me eating breakfast before we started recording. I can have breakfast for $1 at home. I can spend $2 on lunch and $3 on dinner, easy in Bangkok.
Right.
All right, spend $10 a day on food. So that's $300 a month in rent, $300 a month for food. You got $400 left over for hookers.
I see.
And Thailand's reputation for the sex trade is vastly exaggerated. Just to defend Thailand, that's like less than 1% of the globe, of the entire country's economy and society is the sex trade. It's just that's where foreigners tend to concentrate, and where foreigners tend to concentrate, the sex trade tends to concentrate.
I'm guessing that's true.
I don't live where the foreigners concentrate, and I don't see it.
Okay, so back to the subject at hand. Over the next 4 years, I've had this question that I've just come up with this morning or yesterday. My head's spinning from all this activity. But the question was I put it to Elon. He'll never answer. But what's really going to happen in these next 4 or 5 years in terms of the actual disruption of the auto industry? You and I were making projections a year or so ago. When you and I were 2 years ago, when I first started my channel, we were talking about some of these companies actually succeeding, at least at some level, with BEVs, and now they've all dropped off. They're barely in the business. And so I'm not sure what happens 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when they can't compete with Tesla. And there's a huge demand for electrified autonomous vehicles, and Tesla's the only one in the game.
So when I look at the next 4 years for Tesla, I don't have easy answer. My attitude is that Ford, GM, Stellantis all go bankrupt.
I'll go.
Toyota, Honda, whatever. Not necessarily by 2028, but
right.
They're pushing bankruptcy.
Right.
We will start to see legacy automakers drop. And we will see national governments try to protect them, including Trump. I think Trump will try to save the car companies.
Okay.
I think that Japan might let one go, Korea might let one, whatever. Some of the countries might let one or two of their companies go. They will try to save them. They will fail, but they will try to save them. But what the next 4 years looks like. The optimistic thing about the next 4 years from the Trump getting elected is, and there's curveballs everywhere, so you never know.
Right.
Is that they're probably going to hack back the regulatory state some, and that's going to free up Tesla to compete, Tesla to develop robotaxis, Tesla to develop Optimus, and SpaceX to go to Mars,
Right.
and Neuralink to help people with brain diseases, and Boring Company to tunnel. I think there's a lot of opportunity to clear a lot of regulatory hurdles out of the way. We'll see a lot of progress in the
Right.
next 4 years. This is assuming that Trump doesn't betray
Yes, right.
us and Elon.
Yes.
And I don't think he will.
I don't either. No.
So I think that part, and then I think there's a second question for the US economy and the global economy. Will they succeed in getting control of spending? I don't expect them to eliminate the deficit. I think that that's overly optimistic. We will continue to have a deficit. The debt will continue to grow. I would say Trump's natural tendency would be to spend more. I don't think Trump has it in his bones to spend less, but if Elon is able to work him, and there's other people on the team, and they'll say, we can cut spending here. We can cut spending here. We can cut spending here. Here's, maybe they can hack away at it and lower the deficit and reduce the growth in the debt. That's a start. As AGI and robotics take off, they may grow the economy enough to generate enough revenue to come close to ending the deficit. And it's hard to predict, how that stuff plays out.
Sure.
My concern is go out 4 years and it's 2028 and we have an election. Trump can't run. JD Vance, I like a lot. He's probably the Republican candidate. I can't say for sure.
Probably, yeah.
And it's very early yet. We're picking 4 years out. But,
Sure.
The biggest risk in the long term is that the Republicans don't deliver.
Right.
Trump and the Republicans don't. Mitch McConnell's already signaled he's going to get in the way. So if the Senate gets in the way and tries to hinder progress, that's a problem. I would expect that Alex Soros and the deep state will not be afraid to damage the economy, to do things to damage the economy, to make the Republicans look bad, to try to help the Democrats or a deep state candidate win the next election. They will put up a Republican nominee in 2028. They will put a candidate up for the Republican nomination in 2028 who supports the deep state. There will be deep state candidates on the Republican side in 2028. The Democrat, and by the way, my advice to the Democrats is, maybe you could have a real legit open primary and the person who wins might be likable. Whoever wins an open primary is
usually likable.
And, you've tried the unlikable candidates, right? The Hillarys and the Kamalas are just not, you shut out Tulsi Gabbard. She's probably the most likable of all the candidates that have been out there in the last few years.
Right.
I voted for Tulsi in the Democratic primary in 2020.
There you go.
So you can, if you do open primaries and you have legit, do that approach instead of controlling the primary and forcing the candidate that has the most influence inside the Democratic Party. Sorry, did I say Communist Party? Then you would end up with likable candidates, and then people like likable candidates are more likely to vote for them.
Yeah, might work. Especially if your policies were somewhere close to what Americans want.
Maybe pushing, men into women's sports and like my personal thing, like maybe forcing people to wear masks and jabs and firing people from their jobs if they don't comply and censoring people. Maybe censorship's the wrong approach.
Maybe.
It's comical to watch the Democrats talking about, it's not fair that they have these Joe Rogans and Lex Friedmans or whatever. They have all these podcasts that are influential. Right. You had Joe Rogan.
They did.
Joe Rogan.
They still have Lex Friedman. Lex Friedman's a liberal.
Yeah, but Joe Rogan endorsed. No. They don't see him. See, Lex hasn't figured it out. They think Lex is a far right radical.
Not even close.
They can't. He can't see. No, they hate you too, Lex. They can't see it. But they think that there's some sort of, trick, and, Elon's buying these podcasts and getting millions of people watch Joe Rogan. I don't know what their insane theories are, that Starlink satellites stole the election. I mean, they got all these insane theories. Like, maybe you're running shitty candidates and your message sucks, and you should try to reach out to people who like mainstream America. And I'm seeing like whispers of like Democrats, like I think, I guess Chris something, maybe he's a New Jersey senator, Chris Murphy or something like that. I probably don't have his name right. And he's sort of stumbling around trying to figure out what he's posting on X, like, the rich states voted for us and the poor states voted for them. Maybe we're not reaching the people we say we care about. Maybe because you don't care about them. Maybe you should actually like think about what, instead of having these bullshit policies that you make up on the fly to win an election, maybe you should actually think, well, what, because look, fundamentally to me, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hold back. The Democratic Party is the Communist Party.
Okay.
They are communists. They want power. They want to centralize power. They want to control the economy. They want to make economic.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about that, Warren. You spent 3 years in law school. Did every single law student that you knew in law school think that he was going to save the world and that all the little people would be just bowing down and thanking them for their brilliance and for the way that they were lifting them up?
I did not go to an elite law school.
Oh, okay.
I went to 2 elite universities before I went to law school.
Yes, okay.
I went to a 3rd-tier law school.
I see.
4th-tier law school.
You and Kamala.
It was a very pragmatic law school where people were hoping to get a job in the prosecutor's office.
I see. Okay. All right.
Job is maybe there were those people in my law school, but I think if you go to Yale or Harvard or Stanford, there's probably more of those people.
Or UCLA. Everybody I knew at UCLA Law was, I'm going to save the world. I mean, they didn't say it that way, but it was in their whole demeanor is, I know so much more about how life should be run and how people should, do what they do, that I'm gonna just help them see the light.
Just a quick, note from my life as a lawyer, because I was a trial lawyer for over 20 years.
Right.
And there's this moment I remember, I walk into an elevator, I'm wearing a suit, showing up for court, and there's non-lawyers in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that there's that moment where you notice they're looking at you different. There's like a level of respect that they have for you that frankly, I don't feel like, well, you don't really know me. Yeah. I didn't do anything to deserve the respect that you're showing me. I'm not complaining about it, but when that happens, you shouldn't be like, aha, I got the respect I finally deserve. It should be like, well, I better earn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm getting this respect from people, I better earn it.
Yeah.
And there's an awful lot of people who think they deserve respect because they got good grades,
right,
and passed a test. It's like, well, no, are you helping people? Are you making the world a better place?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen lawyers who I didn't respect, right? Who were not doing things to make the world a better place.
No.
Right? That's
kind of the reputation, actually.
No. I've seen a lot of lawyers who really do help people.
Yes,
I think that's not a fair.
It may not be fair. It just is.
Yeah. No, I want to defend the legal profession, at least in Albany, New York, where I worked.
Yeah.
At least in the criminal defense bar and the personal injury bar, generally, and there's exceptions to this, people were doing their jobs trying to help people.
Right.
They might have been trying to help the person who was injured in the accident. They might have been trying to help the person who really wasn't injured that badly in the accident to get him something. They might have been trying to defend the insurance company and defend the person who was driving the car who has been accused of causing the accident. You might be trying to help a drug addict get some treatment so that they get a lighter set, go and follow the right process so they fix whatever their drug abuse problem is and also get better result from their court case.
Right.
There's a lot of things and the prosecutor might be trying to restore justice to a victim or stop that person from doing bad things again. I think there's a lot of good people in the system trying to do good things. There are definitely bad people in the system doing bad things, and there might be more of them in the legal profession than everywhere else, but still mostly good people trying to do good things.
So if Tesla is able to, okay, listen, I'm sorry, let me come back. Elon is now hanging out with the president in Mar-a-Lago, sitting by the pool, checking out, making suggestions and recommendations. He's been there for the entire week since the election, or whether 4 days, 5 days since the election, helping the president with his transition. I'm assuming from time to time he might turn to the president and go, So have you thought about my idea about automated, cars everywhere and nobody will drive themselves anymore? I mean, do you think that he's persuading him along the lines of his mission? Because I mean,
I don't think that Robotaxi is high on his list of things to talk to Trump about.
you don't? Okay.
I think that he did mention, and I just like I don't always agree with Elon, and Elon's
Mhm.
smarter than me. If I disagree with Elon, he's probably right, but I'll say my opinion anyway. I don't agree that we want a national regulator
Oh,
for
for
robotaxi,
Robotaxi. Okay.
for self-driving cars. I don't I
Okay.
don't I don't want that. I would rather go state by state.
Wow.
Um, let Texas and Florida let robotaxis flourish in Texas and Florida and
Right.
Nevada, and
Right.
let the people in New York fly to Orlando to go to some convention or go to Disney World or fly to Vegas for a convention or go to casinos or whatever. Experience robotaxis, get home and say, "Wait, why don't we have this here?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You still there?
I am. I think we're having a little bit of a glitch, but we'll probably get through it. Maybe. I don't know. There
Randy,
you
you still there?
We're back, I think.
Okay. So, if some states have it and some don't, then when the people from the states that don't have robotaxi arrive in the states that do have robotaxi and they experience it, and then they get home, then they throw their politicians out if they're not happy with them.
Right.
Right. Then they elect the people who are, and if they don't, then they choose to live in, and I honestly expect that robotaxis will flourish in China before they flourish in New York.
Interesting. Interesting.
I think that that robotaxis will flourish in Texas and Florida, maybe California, probably California, because California, as communist as California is, they already have self-driving cars.
Right.
So
Right.
I,
Right.
I don't think Gavin Newsom's going to stop it.
Right.
Um, but you're going to see it in half the states, and then Illinois and Massachusetts and New York and Michigan will probably resist.
Yeah.
And
Well, from Tesla's standpoint, that won't really matter that much. You can only make so many a year. And so
well,
if
Florida, Texas, and California are the largest states.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you have half the states, including the three largest, then 5 years later, the other states will come on board, right? But in the meantime, China's going to adopt Robotaxi before half the United States. They're going to adopt Optimus before half the United States. Um, I think that we're going to see this stuff accelerate, and we're going to see global economy improve.
okay.
And New York and Michigan and Illinois and Massachusetts will dig themselves into deeper holes, and maybe the people of those states will figure it out at some point.
What do you think the value is of the relationship between
So
Trump?
I just want to be clear.
Okay.
If you have a federal regulator,
Yes,
you lose the election in 2028,
and they change it.
then they start clamping down on your robotaxi operations, right? I don't want a bigger federal government. I want a smaller federal
Oh,
government.
right, right. Okay, so what do you think is the advantage if assuming that Elon heard you and goes, okay, we don't want any national regulations after all. What do you think is the advantage of this very close personal relationship if it isn't going to help Elon? I mean, Elon is mission driven, right? This is
Yeah,
something we know about him. He's mission driven. He's been mission driven since he was 14 or 15, whenever he read the what do you call it, the Galaxy. And he,
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
yeah, and he is mission driven. So if I'm mission driven, I know what I've been like my whole life. People are like, Randy, quit selling me, So I have to think that Elon isn't any different than that. When he's mission driven, he's going to be nudging the president going, don't you see
No,
what I
no,
mean?
I
Don't you see
don't
what I
think
mean
that.
by what could happen if we do it this way?
I think Elon is not doing this to benefit Tesla and
I didn't
SpaceX.
say he's doing it to benefit. I'm saying, if he's mission driven, wouldn't that just be part of his personality to want Trump on board with this mission?
I think that the mission of getting involved in government here is to create a better playing field for everyone,
Right.
to clear out the regulatory hurdles that get in everyone's way, not just
Mhm.
Tesla and SpaceX's way,
Right. Right.
to reduce wasteful government spending that harms the economy. And this is something, by the way, when you say, oh, they're going to cut a bunch of jobs and people say it's going to be bad for the economy. No, a large number of those jobs are unproductive or counterproductive.
Yes.
Okay. So if you fire 20% of the federal workforce after you determine those jobs were either unproductive or counterproductive, the economy doesn't if they're just unproductive, it's like zero net
Right.
contribution to the
Right.
economy, then there's no effect on the economy. If
Right.
they're counterproductive, the economy gets better just by firing them.
Right.
And I would say at least 10% of federal employees are counterproductive.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if you get rid of the counterproductive and some of the non-productive, there's no short-term hit to the US economy.
Right.
And long-term, it's obviously a positive.
Right.
And then, again, I say I disagree with Elon. Elon mentioned something about giving them 2 years severance. Like, we give them 3 months. Like, why would you give them 2 years of severance? There's no amount of money you're going to give them that's going to buy their political support.
Right. Yeah, I think he was trying to offset people's worries that these, million people are going to be out there looking for jobs and their families are going to be suffering and all the rest. But I'm sure that
the rest of us suffer if we have to give them money they didn't earn.
Of course, of course, of course.
And we've already been giving them money for being unproductive.
Based on when I've worked
for being counterproductive, they already got it. That's not my problem.
Yes.
They've been living high on the hog, government employee, they got great pensions already set up for themselves. Yeah. They're not losing their pensions. We don't need to give them any more. Yeah. 3 months severance is more than enough.
I'm all good. I'm good. Listen.
And if just be clear, if 20% of them go and do something productive,
yeah,
then it's a big gain for the economy. And maybe 50% of them go and do something productive.
Right.
So I just think that Elon's goal is we've got to protect free speech. Mm-hmm. We got to protect individual rights. Right. We got to clear away the regulatory morass.
Right.
We've got to get some government efficiency going. So we cut spending so that the economy isn't constrained, isn't in trouble because we're just spending ourselves into bankruptcy at the governmental level. So I don't think it's going to be any significant part of his time to say, hey, we need a Robotaxi, regulatory body at the national level. Like that can't be his priority.
Okay, I think we're still missing each other just a little bit. I'm not saying that he's going to give him specific directions with regard to what to do about it, but rather bringing him on board on the mission. So we know that the Republican base was not terribly interested in electric cars. Republican base probably doesn't even know about automated vehicles. 1% probably know that there's such a thing as a potential automated vehicle. And so Trump, to the extent that he talked about it at all, was usually more negative than positive. So bringing him on board to the vision, what it could mean for the country, what it could mean for the economy, what it could mean for the wealth of the individual families that end up not even owning a car because they're on a $100 a month subscription for a Robotaxi.
I don't read Trump that way.
Okay, all right.
I don't think you bring Trump on board. I think that Trump's granddaughter drives a Cybertruck and posts pictures of herself with her Cybertruck, right? I think that, getting Trump in a Cybertruck and having him sit behind, or any Tesla and having him sit behind the wheel and have the car drive itself, he probably doesn't know, because Trump probably hasn't driven a car.
Right.
He's probably always sitting in the back of a limo in Manhattan, right? I don't think he drives a car very often.
Probably not.
So that it doesn't relate to his daily life. Having an Optimus robot walk into the White House and serve the president a cup of tea, I think he's almost 80 years old. I don't think he cares, and I don't think it's important. I think what's important is if Trump has figured out that we need to constrain we need to hack back the federal government and bring it back closer to what it was intended to be. And I don't think he's going to get anywhere close to what it was really intended to be, but just make some progress. Remove the power from the deep state, the FBI, the CIA, the DEA, whatever, all these, government agencies that are spying on us and propagandizing us and censoring us. And we'll see. I mean, he's put out a bunch of videos with a bunch of different agenda items. I don't think Elon views it as his job to get Trump on board with a mission. It's set up this Department of Governmental Efficiency. We'll, joking name, whatever, but they'll set up some body of people who are going to go hardcore and spend the next 6 months digging to figure out how can they hack back government and how can they hack back regulations. And I think getting Trump on board with that is way more important than getting Trump on board with, because EVs and robo taxis are going to happen anyway. right? I
Right.
don't think Trump needs to be on board with it. I don't think he needs to preach it. You have somebody who rides Uber and you give them a ride in a Robotaxi and it saves them money and they don't have to give a tip and they don't have to worry about the guy smelling or being rude or speaking a strange language because there's no driver. Um, Consumers will adopt quickly.
So, so to switch subjects for just a second, same subject, but a different product. I would tend to agree with you that it's going to happen anyway. The robotaxis are going to happen. I think Optimus is going to happen. The one that I don't think is going to happen without some kind of top-down leadership, and I started talking about this, I think about 6 months ago, in terms of the Eisenhower administration had the or the national highway system, that there needs to be a national energy system, a top-down plan for a distributed energy system using primarily solar batteries and nukes. And that this is something that is like Eisenhower, just going to need that kind of a top-down vision and also a timetable, because with all the demand on energy that we're going to have with the data centers, electric cars, electric stoves, et cetera, it needs to be something that's done fast because we need to move to that electric system quickly.
I definitely think that the electrical infrastructure and the supply of things like voltage transformers is going to hold back some innovation and is holding back some innovation. Um, I don't know that there's a need for, I think it's really hacking back the regulations that hinder the growth of energy is more important than
Those are so
having government.
localized with the utilities and all the stuff, all the craziness.
Well, I don't know to what extent, I don't know where those regulatory hurdles are.
Okay.
I think hacking away at regulations that hinder, I just don't like the idea of a top-down grid.
Okay.
And Texas doesn't like Texas likes having its own grid.
Right.
And I think there may be some value in having separate grids so that if one grid goes down, we all don't go down,
Well,
right?
no, I like the idea. I'm 100% for the grid to be distributed, but rather it's kind of, again, like the railway system or like the national highway system, the various states operating in all kinds of different ways and
Okay,
all
let me
kinds.
just be clear. I don't want the federal government involved in anything.
Well, that wouldn't be because you're a libertarian.
Well, I mean, I would say just as a constitutionalist,
Okay. Yeah.
federal government shouldn't be involved in that. We're United States. We're not the people have this image that the federal government is supposed to control everything. It's like, no, no, no. We're a collection of states, and the federal government exists to defend the borders, which are not under threat other than from immigration, which the federal government, at least in the last 4 years, hasn't cared about or has been actively subverting our borders. And I'm an open borders guy, but I don't think we should pay them and fly them in. I don't think
Oh,
we should give
really?
them free
Oh, really?
stuff. No, I mean, just like a side note here, like the chaos that is immigration, people have no idea how bad the immigration system is. So I just got married,
Yeah.
right? If I want to bring my wife to live in America to get a green card,
Yeah.
there's a process for that. It takes like a year.
Yeah.
If she was from a wealthy country, it would be different. If she, like a European could come, whatever. But to get the green card and for her to be able to enter the country on that process takes like a year.
Wow.
To bring her as a tourist, the fact that she's my wife doesn't count.
Wow.
So she has to jump through some other hoops, which we're working on. I do want to bring her back as a tourist. We don't want to live in America,
I
at
got you.
least not long term. Still a permanent resident. I'm a
Hmm.
nomad. I'm, traveling, whatever. Um, we are possibly talking about coming for a year soon, but anyway. But if under the Biden administration, if I got her into Mexico and we crossed the border at Starbase, hung out at Rocket Ranch for a little while, and then went up to the border crossing just, on the way in from Starbase to Brownsville, Texas. And she said, refugee, you'd
Right.
get a free hotel room in New York City and a
Right.
$10,000 debit card and maybe a $50,000 down payment on a house in Florida, in California. Right. So I'm like smacking myself, like, why didn't I pick her up, a couple months ago? And why didn't we take advantage of this plan?
Exactly.
Even just
Exactly.
some phone app, we could have like CBP1 or something. We could have like signed her up and flown her into America, and then I could go. But we like where we are, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tend to believe we should follow the law. So That's how broken our immigration system is. And I don't expect Elon to fix, I want
Right,
to make sure Warren's wife can come as a tourist. Like I don't,
right,
that's not Elon's priority.
right,
Well, I follow Warren. I see he's got these problems. So let me get Trump's ear. Hey, can we get Warren's wife in on a tourist visa? That's not my goal, right? That's not his goal. Um, but I just think that there's a lot of things that are broken. But the federal government's role is to defend the borders and to resolve disputes between states. The idea that the federal government, and if the states want to work together on something, then the states work together on something, not the federal government top down telling
right,
the states
right,
how to work.
right, right,
And there's all kinds of people don't realize there's like the driver's license compact is an agreement between states. There's
right,
no federal driver's license.
right.
And some states participate in the driver's license compact and some don't. If I'm a New York licensed driver and I get a ticket in Florida, doesn't show up on my driving record in New York.
Mhm.
If I get a ticket in New York, they both report to each other. New York ignores out-of-state violations.
Mhm, mhm.
If I'm a Florida driver and I get a ticket in New York reports it to Florida, it shows up on my record, my insurance rates go up.
Right,
Right.
right.
So states, there's no federal government mandate. This is how
I
you
do.
guys are going to solve your driver's license issues.
Right.
I don't think we need that. I think we want less federal government, not more.
What if
And
the,
anytime
what if,
you,
yeah,
and just to be clear, going back to my cancer point, anytime you add some government, it's going to grow, it's going to metastasize, and it's going to cause problems.
oh, okay, then I can already anticipate your response to my de minimis offer, which is a federal, a commission that establishes an idea or suggestion for a nationwide grid, and then it's totally up to the states how they execute.
I think we already have something approximating a nationwide grid. What we need is large amounts of solar.
Mhm.
I would like nuclear. I don't think we need it, but I would like to see some nuclear, but large amounts of solar, large amounts of battery packs.
Mhm.
And that's just an example of the hurdles that we face. And these are, I think, primarily state rather than federally driven. If you're in Florida, and I don't know what the rules are in California, and you want to put solar on your roof, they won't, the utility won't let you put more than you need,
Indeed.
than what they say you need. So you got a roof that can support 40 kilowatts of solar. They say, well, you only need 10.
Right.
Once you're up on the roof installing the solar, the
Just keep
cost of
going.
the extra solar is trivial. Like the big chunk of the cost is setting up the project. Once you're on the roof, adding some, it adds cost. I'm not saying it doesn't add cost.
Right, right, right.
And like I know Florida. I don't know whether this is true in California. This is true in Florida. It's true in a lot of states that the utility gets to say no, you can't add more.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that they can stop you from adding it in California, but there have been differentiating. The rules have changed over time with regard to whether you can get the utility to pay for the overage.
No, if you're connected to the grid,
Yeah.
they don't want you to have too much solar because
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
they might not let you stay connected. Their powers say, well, you can't connect to our grid if
Right.
you have too much solar, and that's something the states should change. But the one thing I noticed in Florida was I was thinking about building a solar farm. Well,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't.
Oh, okay.
What are you going to do with the electricity when you generate it? If you have your own factory, you can build a solar farm for your factory. If you have your own supercharger network, you can build
Right.
solar for your supercharger, but you can't attach it to the grid.
Yeah.
Because the grid won't allow it.
Right.
And the utilities, people talk about APAC, they talk about the National Rifle Association, and they have these ideas that there's these lobbies that are
Right.
super powerful. You know who's powerful? Farmers and utilities.
Right.
Right? You want to know who the powerful lobbies are in America? Farmers and utilities. Like farmers are like, I don't know, 1% of the population. They have these massive subsidies. Like, has anybody looked at the ag subsidies? Like, what percentage of the population is farmers? They're all millionaires.
Right.
And they're getting piles of money.
Yes.
Right? The utilities don't control the federal government, they control the state governments.
Right.
And they have tremendous power. And people are like, they're focused on, and I'm a libertarian. I don't think the federal government should give any money to any country. Right? I don't support the federal government giving money to Israel. It's just that I don't support the federal government giving money to any country.
Anybody. Right.
And
Yeah.
sorry, we're going off on too many tangents.
So let me just do one more thing, and you're probably not going to answer this anywhere close to what I want you to do, because I think I know your answer before I ask it. But on this channel, nobody trade. I don't know how many of my people that are listening are traders. I don't know how many of them. For a while I was a day trader, but I don't know how many of the people that are listening are buying options and leaps and all the rest of the stuff. But I think most of the people that watch the channel, even though they're long-term, they're in it for the long term, they still watch it every day and they're very interested in where it's going. The highest ratings I ever get, or the highest number of people that watch the videos, it's always about what the price of the stock is going to be next week, next month, or next year. So do you have any ideas at all about what you think is going to happen in this crazy run-up? Are we going to cap out at all-time high? Are we already at 350 is already it? Do we go all the way to 500? Do you have any theories at all about what's going to happen in the next few weeks or months?
Well, my favorite line is I think the stock will fluctuate.
Yes.
I'm confident in that prediction.
It'll go up and it'll go down. Yes.
It will go up, it will go down. I think there's a really good chance of going to 400. It comes down to this question of have we hit that point where the market timers have started to buy?
Yeah.
If some market timers start to buy to get ahead of the other market timers, and then some of the 90% are like, hey, what's this Tesla stock? Oh wait, are we starting the flood?
Yeah.
I don't think, like you mentioned, a million semis earlier. Like
that's what. So Brian Wong thinks that that Tesla should build all the semis. I said he says 4 million. He thinks there's 4 million large trucks and semis that are built each year according to his analysis. That's worldwide. And I'm saying, look, 20%, 25% is fine, but I'd like to build at least 1 million. And that's a 4,000. That's a 400 billion profit business.
I don't think that there's 4 million full size 18-wheeler 80,000 pound.
They're called large trucks in China. They're called something else, other countries, but they're within that same range.
China is the biggest market. China's about 1 million a year, but and then India has a big market. There's plenty of others, but I think my number was around 2.5 million a year. It depends. What do you do with the box truck that holds 25,000 pounds? That at least 25,000 pounds. Which category do you put that in?
Right.
Something that's bigger than a Ford F-350, right? At what point, where, because there's a gap there. There's a big gap between a Ford F-350.
Yes.
Right, and a semi. So there's stuff in the middle.
Right.
So I think that I could easily see Tesla selling 1 million semis a year, but their current plan is 50,000.
Right.
And it's going to take time to ramp that up.
Right.
But I think even like 100,000 semis a year is a big number.
It's a big number.
And I think 250,000 semis a year doesn't seem like that far off, and the value there. So I think there's a lot of different things that are creating value. I think Tesla Energy, like, when are they going to announce the next mega factory?
Yeah, no kidding. R2 or 3.
We're probably going to need a few more of those.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Tesla's plans with the capital. They have this big cash pile.
Yeah.
So now that Trump has won, recession might be less likely with Trump in office. Elon may have more confidence about the economy with Trump being in power. Mm-hmm. Although I think he does predict some short-term pain as well. But I think that they've been using their CapEx primarily. I think they're spending $12 billion this year on AI.
Right.
AI training centers.
Something like that.
So I think that we're going to see a lot of Tesla's CapEx on more AI. Until they've solved real world AI, that's their priority. Are they going to put more CapEx into building factories to build vehicles? Is that coming? Because they've talked about working within the existing lines. We know that the next generation vehicle, the Cybercab, they'll start building that in 2026. And I think they already have the line set up in Texas, or they're somewhere in Giga, Texas, that they have a line set up to build the
they're just adding 2.5 million square feet in that building. So
but I think the line was, I think that's an addition. I think the line was already, what the Walter Isaacson biography said, that the line was already in place.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're just tweaking that stuff. That's just Texas, so they got to build it elsewhere too. Are they going to build it in Mexico? Are they giving up on Mexico? They're probably going to build it in China for sure.
China and Berlin.
Berlin seems very, very likely.
Right.
Although, the German government, the European governments might have persuaded Elon maybe Europe isn't the place to invest. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
they do appear that they're going to be adding on at least that portion that they've cleared the ground for and are starting to actually,
We'll
sounds
see
like,
how the European governments react to a President Trump.
yeah, there's another story. We'll see what happens.
I could see, European government regulations increase, European government hostility to the U.S. government increase, and Elon saying, "Fine, we won't create more jobs in Germany."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see that coming. There's plenty of room to build vehicles in China. There's plenty of room to build vehicles in other places.
India stepped up to the line, said they're interested again, so we'll see.
Oh, I'm sure Thailand would love to have a
Thailand would love to have it. Indonesia has definitely said they want. So there's
Yeah.
plenty of places to go. Warren,
So
we're going to have to call a close to it. We'll have to do this again soon because we've only touched maybe on half of the subjects that I'm sure we could. maybe we're not even to half yet. But thanks for coming on board. I know it's time for you to start your day over there in
I'm gonna
Japan.
go back to sleep, actually.
We'll see. We'll see if it works. Okay. Thanks so much, Ian.
Thanks, Randy.
And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.